Hello, Susan Corbett, custom machine quilter here with this cute baby quilt. Oh my goodness. There's a lot to talk about here, so let's get right in it. Here was the quilt before. The client wanted just an all-over design, so I searched and found this pattern, which I drew a little bit here on this piece of scratch paper before I attempted to do it freehand. This is also, there's a pantograph pattern out there. I think it's called birch or birch bark. This was the last quilt I quilted on my gamel. I sold it and bought a Bernina instead. And I thought I might buy a pattern and use it here, but the timing was way off, and so I just ended up freehanding it. And I think this is a really useful lesson for all of us. This is just not hard to do, not hard at all. And I think freehanding it would be way faster than programming a machine and spending the money. I think it's totally worth it to spend your time learning how to freehand. Because this was fun. This was so much fun to do. So basically what's going on here, it's the same concept as a swirl. If you can quilt a swirl, you can quilt this easily. This is just more pointy. I learned a wood grain background years ago, and this is an awful lot like that wood grain pattern. At first, I thought, well, I really don't want to overall quilt this. It's way too cute. It was really hard in the beginning to quilt right over the little creatures' faces and stuff, but I had to quit thinking about that and just get on with the business of quilting it. And this is such a fun pattern to do that that helped in getting over that whole issue. And plus, this quilt is so cute all by itself. It really didn't need, of course, I would have loved to have customized it. That would have just made it way better. But that wasn't an option here. This quilt is wonderful on so many different levels. All those seam allowances here really, you can use that. It will contribute to the loft. And the fabric, it's all cotton. It looks like there's linen in here, but there's not. It's just cotton fabric, gray thread. I chose a medium gray so that it wouldn't look too too much of a contrast, either in the lights or the darks. All right, so I mentioned that I learned how to make a wood grain pattern, which is a background fill because it's pretty darn dense. And this is a much enlarged version of that. Not exactly the same thing, but in the same vein. So one of the things that really sells the wood grain concept here is all the echo that's happening. So you may have already noticed this creates little pockets of space where you might not think you could put another of these little, I don't know what you want to call them, these little, well, to me it either looks like a knothole on a tree or a leaf. And that's what sold me on this design as an overall, because I didn't know like I didn't have a pattern at the ready for how to quilt this. And I was looking for something organic, and that's how I ended up with this. That seems to be the way to go. Love it, love it, love it. Something nature inspired that wasn't extremely overt. Because this could go on pretty much any quilt. It's conceptual enough that it doesn't have to represent anything. And every so often I would think I was doing a swirl. So you know how the brain reverts to what it already knows. So I had to keep thinking pointy and large and wood grain. So as with any meander, I like to keep it going in all different directions. And this one turned out a little bit more directional than I would have liked for it to go. But I kept looking for ways to turn those leaves / knot holes around so that it would go in all different directions. So that's a thing to watch out for. And the other thing is, you'll end up with little pockets of, is that space big enough for another one of these, or is it not? So that's where echo is your friend. Echo is so good for lots of reasons, but one is it'll fill in all those little awkward spaces. So that's one thing. The other thing is it's good for getting you to another place on the quilt. So I can travel around echoing here and there to get from one place to another. And that's what makes a meander, as opposed to a pattern meander where everything goes in a row or all in the same direction. So this was just so much fun. Really loved it. The client has brought me another one of these. She loved it so much that she made one for herself. This one was going to be a gift for someone's child, and she made a larger one so she and her family can have one and enjoy it as well. The pattern is called North Stars. It was designed by Elizabeth Hartman, in case you want to have one for you and your family too. Also, I had occasion just recently to try this design out as a teeny tiny background fill. The block was an applique swirl, and so I quilted some background quilting, some ground meandering for the ground, and then when I'd established a horizon line, I filled in all the upper portion with this design, but itty bitty. It went really quickly, and it's darling, really cute. So this would have all kinds of other uses as well. I think I'll use it more and more. As I said, I've bought a new long arm. Switching from a hand-guided, extremely low-tech machine to a computerized machine, I knew there would be a great big learning curve and a lot of differences, and I did not know how much of a big change that was going to be. So, I haven't, I'm sure you've noticed I haven't put out a video in quite some time. I've been otherwise occupied. And I haven't recorded anything on there because, oh my gosh, I'm in the awkward, ugly duckling phase of that learning curve. It might hearten some people to know that I've gone back to being a beginner, so I know what that's like all over again. I had quilted for 25 years on my old machine, so I'm back in kindergarten now. I wanted to say one word about batting here. See the great lofty texture we have happening here? That's not solely because of seam allowance, as I mentioned earlier. It's a combination of a whole bunch of things. And one of those factors is going to be batting. I don't typically double bat. No client ever asks for that. But most of the time, I don't think you need it. It's great. It's more expensive. It's more trouble. So the batting I've used here is Hobbs Heirloom 80/20. 80 cotton, 20 polyester, and that little bit of poly makes a great big difference. I've always liked it because it's drapey and malleable, and it gives me just the right amount of loft. I prefer it over anything like, a 100% cotton bat that just doesn't, that's great too, but it doesn't have the loft that this batting has. And I love how the loft looks on this quilt, right where we are. It is so pretty. The thread is Omni by Superior, which I really like, especially for overall quilting. I know lots of people use all kinds of other things. I want something that's not going to break for this type of quilting. It's a baby quilt. We don't know if how heavily, if ever, it will actually get used. I find that the cuter the baby quilt, the less inclined anybody is to actually do anything with it, except maybe hang it on the wall. They think it's too precious to do anything with. So this is not where I'd like some shiny poly thin thread. I want something strong. I've seen, like one client brought me a quilt that I'd done for her years and years and years ago. And I got to see how it was holding up. The parts with a lot of quilting were holding up really well. The parts with sparse quilting, not nearly as much. That was instructive. I really appreciated seeing that. So this is pretty evenly quilted. Some areas are quilted a little bit less densely than others, which I think makes it more interesting. There are no big areas of unquilted parts anywhere, so I like the density. There's a couple of little holes that I'm thinking, I should have put more in there, but not, like that one. See, to the right of that little leaf I just put in? I like that to be filled in. That's where echo could really do a lot for that. If I did some dense echoing, it would make that leaf or wood grain part really puff out even more. I think that's a good thing. That helps you sell the whole concept of wood grain. So pretty. And this is fun to watch too. We are almost done. Well, what I hear all the time is, oh, Susan, I'd love to be a freehander, but I just can't get the hang of it. If you put on a quilt or just a piece of fabric and you did this from start to finish, by the time you got done, you would know the design, and you'd be a lot more confident in your freehanding abilities. So see what great texture that's in there. Is it killing anyone else to have quilted right over these critters' faces? Probably not. It's just a darling quilt. There's an example of a little space I filled in with kind of a swirl, which is fine. Some great big ones, some little bitty ones. I love the difference. Here's a look at the back. So gorgeous. So there's the finished product. I look forward to making more videos for you.